Welcome back to the channel, guys. I'm here with this chump, this loser by the name of Tien Lu. God, I don't know why I work with this kid. Anyway, so we're going to work on, we're doing a little wrestling options into the back, and wrestling, every back attack in jiu-jitsu really leads out of wrestling. Wrestling always leads to the back. There's no back attack that exists without wrestling. It's all wrestling technique adapted to the floor. So it's very important to study this in your development as a jiu-jitsu athlete. First things first, when we come out and we meet, we always want to meet head to head on each other, just like so. I don't want to have my head and my posture out of range of my opponent's head lower than my head, because then it's very easy for him to level change on me and just score an easy takedown. So I always bring my elbows in, because I don't want my arms extended out, and I meet head to head on my opponent and start fighting for grip and improving position. Now, from here, it's very common for my opponent to look to take a collar tie on me, right? Which is a good thing to do, because from here he's got a ton of options and he can move my head around, start breaking down my posture. So the first thing I do when I see this sort of thing is I counter it with my own over tie, okay? So we can neutralize the scenario. So now at this point, we can both start breaking down each other's posture, and we both have attacks, right? As well as I can neutralize some of his. First thing I'm gonna look to do is turn my angle. So I start cutting the corner, and I'm gonna go from here and use my left shoulder to start stripping my opponent's hand off the collar tie. At the same time, my right hand that was occupied with his hand is gonna go to his inside of his wrist, inside wrist position. So I don't want the outside, I wanna be right on the inside of the wrist, right here. Once I get the inside of the wrist, my shoulder shucks it off, my head turns and looks towards the far wall. And then my elbow goes deep underneath his armpit, and then I hook just like so, and I bring my elbow in, and I stretch out his elbow, just like so. Sorry, I bring my sternum in and stretch out his elbow. So now all my weight leans on my opponent's tricep. So that way he tries to pull off on me, it's gonna be difficult. The common reaction is gonna be for him to frame, to try to strip his arm away and square up with me, okay? From here, my first option, there's a lot of options from a Russian tie. My first option is always to look for the back. And this is the easiest arm drag in the game. I'm gonna take this, and I'm just gonna switch off so my right hand comes up and scoots right underneath, just move this for just a second, right underneath my opponent's armpit, so it hooks up like an uppercut, like so, okay? Then on my left hand is gonna switch and go around my opponent's hip. Now whenever we get to an arm drag, especially from standing position, I'd like my head to come inside my opponent's head. Now from here, the first thing you gotta understand is that if we chase the back too quickly, my opponent can just spin around and square up with me, and it's gone, he slips the arm out. So I don't wanna chase my opponent's back, I chase my opponent's tricep. That's important to understand. If I chase the back, there's space that allows him to start turning out, and he squares up. So for example, from right here, we'll do it wrong. So we go right here, and he's just gonna square up, okay? So, he's gone in a flash. But if I go from here, try to square up on me, and I chase his tricep, you see what happens. With my head inside his head, he can't get away. And then from here, I just shuck it by, and I get behind in the rear body lock. So you can see it's really actually in two parts. Any good arm drag, I go to the tricep first, inside head position, outside at times too, and then from there, then I shuck by and go to the waist, okay? So one more time from there, here's my head, here we are, we're hand fighting, etc. I switch, just like so. From here, he's pushing off my head, and I shuck by, and now I got behind in a rear body lock, okay? Now, the rear body lock is a good position, but if I just stay with the rear body lock, my opponent's got all kinds of options. He can go for kimura on me, okay? He can hit switches, he can go for leg locks on me, all kinds of problems. So, just like where I showed before with the Schultz, I like to go all the way around and hip lock my opponent. Now, the hip lock puts incredible weight on the leg, and it can actually take my opponent down. So I go elbow deep on one side, and I hip lock as my ear goes into his rib cage and into his leg. So he tries to do any of those moves, he tries to fight for, let's say, kimura, it's just extremely difficult. It constantly ruins my opponent's posture. And then from there, I want to keep those hands on the mat. So I'm going to switch to what's called a Kosoto Gake. I lock up again, and my knee goes right over his knee. So as I start tilting him down to the floor, there's nowhere for his leg to step. And then I'll take his hands to the mat. I now come around to the side, and make sure I lean my weight on my opponent's leg, and then I switch to a shoelace foot control. So my foot stops on his foot. I then, what's called in wrestling, thigh pry, as I go for a claw grip on the far side. Now I'm gonna step out my left leg, and I spin my opponent with a tilt to the floor. Okay? This gives me to double underhooks and a crab ride position, where my legs are on the inside. Okay, just like so. I then take my body over, my unarmed, and this goes into a seatbelt. My left leg goes over the top, And then I force my opponent into a high ball ride. Now the value of a high ball ride is to ensure that I have strong connection on the top shoulder and diagonally at his bottom hip. If I have open hooks, things are open here, he can spin or he can slide and strip his body to the floor. Go ahead and like go hips up and strip to the floor. Yeah, all that kind of stuff, okay? So I make sure I get a nice high ball ride. And then from here, if I just try to throw a hook in and bow my leg out, he's gonna just do that same turn and misalign once again. So I've gotta make sure that as he tries to bring that knee up, I lock down tight and I stretch him out. Now, it's very fluid and easy for me to get my hook in. And then from here, there's many ways we can go looking for the strangle, okay? Just make sure whenever you do so, I'm not gonna go too into that today, that you always cover your knuckles, the thumb knuckle especially, with your chin. Because if you don't, his hand could always reach the thumb knuckle and strip it down. And if you get that far, you don't wanna lose all that. So you make sure you cover the thumb knuckle. So even if it's not all the way over, he tries to strip my hands down, it's not happening. And then I can finish. If you enjoyed this video and you're hungry for more, make sure to follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and to check out the website for more content and updates on the grand opening.